Hello, friends. So, I hope you are all doing well and good in your life. Welcome to today's video. In today's video, we are going to learn about a new programming language called JavaScript, which is very important in our web development and web development through React, Angular as well. So, what is JavaScript? So, if we go by the definition, not a definition, a simple defining language, or we can say how we can define the JavaScript. It's basically a simple programming language which adds a functionality to the web page. You all know that with the help of HTML, we can create the structure of the web page. With the help of CSS, we can style our web page. But what about the functionality? With the help of JavaScript language, we can add the functionality over our web page, which includes how the button will work whenever it is clicked, and how different things take care of on the web page. So for an example, on the screen right now you can see that we have one HTML page which includes a neuromorphic navbar, which includes a logo of the web page, the image, and some buttons like home, about, service, and contact. On clicking which every button is clickable, and also it is responsive. So this is all take care of by the JavaScript. Now in the further module we will learn about each JavaScript concept, such as how can we write it into our web page, and how can we include the JavaScript code in our HTML file, and what are its different concepts. Let's dive into it one by one. So here is the code of the neuromorphic navbar, which will be covered in the next video. So make sure you have subscribed and on the bell icon so that you get the notification whenever the next video is out. Probably it will be out on the Wednesday around 6 p.m. So make sure you don't forget to watch that video also. So now coming back to the our concept, how the JavaScript is written inside our HTML file. So this is simple HTML file code where you can see that in I have included some tag as script. So this script tag basically shows that how is used for the JavaScript code for to define functionality. So inside that, these are the advanced functionality. We will learn about them in future. So neglect them. So whenever we write anything inside the script tag, it will always show in our console. Also, we will learn about what is console and how to go over the console tab in our HTML. So here, if I write our first program as console.log, sorry, as hello world, hello world. So now it is written inside our script tag. So let's go to the web page. Here you can see nothing is visible. We have written our hello world, but nothing is visible. So we need to go inside our console tab. So what is the way to go inside the console tab? First, right click on the web page. Here the option is given inspect. Click on that. Then a new sidebar will be open. Here click on that plus icon, or I plus icon. You will find the console tab. But if it is not there, then you can directly click that tab, which is also a console. Now here you can see our hello world is written there. Also we can write many more examples to find an answer. For example, console.log. Also, if you don't want to write the console.log manually, just type the notation CLG and hit enter. It will type automatically, and whatever you type will reflect in our console. For example, I have written the object, it shows the object. If I write something else, just as Devej, the channel name, it will show that one. So that's how the JavaScript code is included in our HTML. There are different ways also. For an example, We don't want to write the script tag here because when you are building such projects which is very large in production or also in the code, so this is not a good way in writing the JavaScript code because in that case it will include a lot of JavaScript code. So what you will do, you will create a new file and save it as a index.js with JavaScript notation. And here in the script tag, you will include, you will write that, remove that script tag, and first you will uh, first you will load that script file in your HTML file. So write script and add the uh, source alternate here. So in the source name, you will give the file name of file name of JavaScript. So JavaScript file name in the source. Now your source file is connected, but you can't see anything is written there. Why? Because our JavaScript file is completely empty. Let's paste the code. And now first, oh, we have to remove this script tag because we are writing now the code inside our JavaScript file. So script tag is now not allowed. So right click on it, format the document. After that, you can see that whatever we have written out inside our JavaScript file code, forget about this, comment that one. Sorry, it's not a way of commenting. Just press Control and forward slash. It will control out. So now you can see whatever console.log you have written inside the JavaScript file is shown in the browser console tab. Now you know how to open the console tab and also this one. Now we are also, you know how we can write the uh, JavaScript file code and how we can include the JavaScript file code in our HTML file using internal and external method both. External method is useful only when the program or the project is very large. That in that case you don't need to write the JS file JS code inside the HTML. You can write into a separate file with JavaScript extension and include that file into your HTML file. But if the program is small or you need to write only a small code for HTML as well as JavaScript, then you in that case you can write into the HTML file also, including a script tag. Now we are moving to the next concept about the variables. So first, don't go to the variables. We will learn about what is comment and how we can write the comments. So JavaScript comments are basically the things which are not shown to the web page. For example, if I write something console for first write the console with console something else as my name is Devaj. Uh, My name is Devaj. Okay. So now you can see this. My name is Devaj. Inside the console is present here, but you want to comment it out. So what are the ways of commenting a JavaScript code? So first, handle the control and press forward slash. Then it will make a control. It will make the code as comes. It will make the code as basically comment. And multi-line comment, there are ways first slash uh, then star. So this will include the multi-line comments. For example, in the above line you can see I have to make this code as a single line comments many times, but I don't want to make it a single line comment, just want to make it as a multi-line comment. So what is the way? First here put the forward slash then star, and in the end also put the star and forward slash as a closing tag. So now you can see it is commented. So but the concept comes into play why we use the comment. Comment is useful whenever you are writing a large code. In that case, you can define every block of code as a separate parts, which is easier in finding the respective one whenever you are debugging your code. For example, you while defining that functionality without making it a comment, we can write the comment for it in the code. First, to make it a comment by pressing the control and forward slash, then press we can write it, we can define its name functionality for the toggle button on toggle button. So that's how this comment will never be present in our will never be shown on the web page, and will help the user or the developer to find a perfect it's a means a perfect code easily, or we can say that to find a particular code easily. Now moving to the next concept as so the next concept is about uh, variables. So what are the variables in JavaScript? Variable in JavaScript or in any other language, both on by the definition all are same. All are used to store some kind of data inside them. But in JavaScript there are two types of variables on the base of scope. But you don't know what is scope. Scope is basically the variable which are defined outside the body, or which are basically defined outside the function. For example, if I there define a variable with the keyword as var a as 1, and then I define some function with the name of add two numbers. Add two numbers, here I want to access the variable called that we have defined above. So if I printed the variable console.log a, but I have not called this function, so let me call that one first. Uh, add two number. Yeah. So when I'm calling this function is using the variable defined in the line number 20, where a is equal to 1. So you can see that the variable which is defined where a is equal to 1 is now accessible inside the add to number, and also it is accessible inside outside of the function. Yeah, you can see the one is printed two times in the console. So we can say that the variable is accessible inside as well as outside of the function. So this scope is told as a global scope. So what is global scope? A variable which is accessible inside a function as well as outside of the function is called a global variable. Or if we go by the means pure definition, then a variable which is defined, which is accessible over all of the function in the JavaScript file is called the global variable. So here we can give the comment for it is a global scope variable. But there are also a variable which are only accessible inside the function but not outside of the function. For example, if we define add two numbers as const b is equal to 1, and sorry, and yo, constant b is equal to 1, and constant c is equal to 1. But if I want to access them outside of the function defined in uh, mm, then if I print that one b, then now you can see we are getting an error uncaught reference, error b is not defined. So this type of scope is basically called a functional scope. So here we can give a comment for that functional scope. Functional scope. So what are the two different types of scopes in JavaScript? Global scope and functional scope. Global scope is basically a variable or a function which is accessible throughout all the file. but a function scope is that variable which is accessible only inside that function. For example, if I don't access that variable here and access it here, then you can see the one is printed again on the third time on accessing B. So means we are accessible to the variable B as well as C. If I print their sum, then you can see it is printed as 2. So that's how this is all about the global scope and functional scope of the variable. Also, on the basis of the scope of the variable, we have different keywords. For example, for the global variable, we are using the keyword called var to define a variable. But for the functional scope, we are using the keywords called constant or another keyword called let. Sorry, let. Let. So these two are basically used for the functional scope. Also, this might be the question asked in the interview that what is the difference between the var and const and let in JavaScript. So you can differentiate between each of them on the basis of their scope. Var is a global scope variable, whereas constant and let are the functional scope variable. And if we try to access the functional scope variable out of the function, then it will give us an error that they are not defined, or uncaught reference means they are not defined in the global scope. That's why. So this is all about the uh, variables in our JavaScript. Now the moving to the next topic as so the next topic is about the data types. What are the different data types are supported in our JavaScript data types. So in JavaScript, basically there are two types of data types. First is primitive data type. So what is a primitive data type? By the definition, primitive data types are those which used to hold the value, or which used to hold the single value, and they are immutable in nature. Immutable means they are not able to, means if we are defined them, then we are not able to change it. Mm. And for example of mutable data type, first is the string one, which we used to hold the textual value. For example, with the global variable where we defined a string value as str, va- value as the channel name damage. So this is our defined string, and if you want to access this, you can easily can. Now you can see in the web that it is defined as devage. But if so how there also we can prove it is immutable in nature. How? If we defined str value of first character as e and again try to access it, then will it change the letter as e or not? Let's see. Now you can see the output is devage. The letter zeroth letter, which is d, is not replaced by the letter e. So this means it is immutable in nature. Means once the primitive data types are defined, then they will never going to be changed. In the same way, we can define another data type as our number with the same keyword called var num value as 10, and if we try to access it, then easily with the console.log, just simply type the clg and hit enter and type the num value. You can see that your num value is presented in the console. And also the third type is boolean. uh, Boolean. So here you can define the boolean as well. Let's define bool value as a name of that one, bool value as true. So if you want to access it, then clg and bool value. So here you can see that your bool value is given as true. And there are also different types such as so the next type of the primitive data type is begint, which represent the which represents the integer of arbitrary length. So how to define it? First the var keyword, then its name, big value, let's say, is equal to the value of it. So it will define the begint. Also we can extract it from clg dom as big value. Then you can see the big integer value is presented in, is given as output in our console. The next type is undefined. So undefined means value of the variable is not given. For example, var x, you define the value but forget to define its what it holds or value, and you try to access it inside the console x, then you can see undefined value, undefined for the value of x. This is called undefined type. When you forget to define or means when you not given the value to the particular defined variable globally or locally as well. Locally means functionally. And the next type is the null value. Null means when you forget to means when you intentionally leave the value of that variable. For example, let's give the name as null value as null null, and you try to extract it inside the console. Okay, missed CLG and null value. And so now inside the console, you can see that the given value of the variable null value is as given as null. Means we have intentionally leave the value of that variable as null, which can be used in the upcoming in the future as well. So that's how these are the different types of primitive data types. Now the second type is non-primitive data types. So what are, let's make it first as control comment. Then second type is non-primitive data types. So what are the non-primitive data types? By the definition, non-primitive data types are used to store the multiple values and they are mutable in nature. So for example, arrays and object. You know what are the arrays and objects. So first let's talk about the arrays. Arrays are used to store the same kind of values, means same kind of different values, a long length. For example, if I define a variable called array as fruit's name. For an example of fruit's name, banana, then sorry, yes, spelling mistake. Then mango, and the next one is as papaya. So now you can see that array is holding the different value, and we can extract any of the value from the array using in the inside the console. So first console we want to access the first value, console dot array one. So sorry, array is not defined. I need to take care of the name as well. So capital array. You can see mango is shown in the console. We got the output as mango. Also, you can access different value as banana and papaya. So the main concept is that non-primitive data types, which is array, used to store the multiple values of the same type. Same type means, for example, you define a banana here string type, but you define a number, and then you defined a boolean as well, which is also support. Oh, sorry, boolean means either true or false, which is also supported inside the non-primitive data types in JavaScript. So these are the non first type is Array second type is object. So object used to store the multiple value in the key value pair in the key value format, which is mostly usable inside whenever we try to extract the data from the database. So let's define the object as obj is equal to, first you should use the curly braces, then you can define uh, data in the key value pair name as devage, and here also we can define the age as 4 years, since the channel is of 4 years old. Now you don't need to give the semicolon inside the object defined. Now if you want to extract any of the value from the object, what is the way? First you should type the name of that object, then type the particular value what you need. So inside the suggestion you can see we are getting the suggestion as age and name. Let's try each one of them one by one. So first I try to extract the object dot age from the defined object. So it is inside the console I'm getting an output as 4. And also if I try the second one, let's do it, copy it and paste it here. And if I try the name, try to extract the name from the object, then I'm getting the name as Devach. So this is a way of defining and extracting the multiple values from the object. Now reiterating the concept again, what are the object and data types inside the JavaScript? So data types are basically two types, primitive and first is primitive data types. Primitive data types are those which used to hold the single value and they are immutable in nature. Immutable means once their value is defined, then they are not able to be changed. So these example of primitive data type is string, where we define the value inside our double quotes. And if we try to change it, where I show you the example, which is not able, then it is not changeable. Then another type is number, boolean, big integer, integer of a specific length, or undefined null. These are the primitive data types example. Now the second data type is non-primitive, which used to hold the multiple values, and their examples are arrays and object. In the array we can hold the multiple values, either they are of same type or multiple type. First in the video earlier part I'll show you that we can store the same type as well as the multiple types. In the example, first I store the string, then number, then a boolean type, and try to access the number, as well as we can access the boolean type also. Now you can see boolean is given as true. Now if we talk about the object is also non-primitive data type, but it used to store the value in key value pair. First, these the name or the age, these are the keys, means whatever is defined on the left side of the semicolon, sorry, colon is the basically key, and which whatever is defined on the right hand side is of the semicolon is the value of that particular key. And how we can extract the particular value from the object? First, type the object name dot the particular object key. So first, in the example, I'll show you that here I am extracting the age value, and then I am extracting the name value. So this is all about today's video. In the next one, we will learn about more concept of JavaScript. Hope you like the video, and if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.